His voice returned, soft, almost mocking. You should check aisle 3. I had no choice. When I reached aisle 3, I stopped cold. There were photographs pinned to the shelves, dozens of them. Photos of me.
You are listening to the Fearcast. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill.
I never planned to work the night shift at Hollow Creek Grocery. I had been searching for work for months when the manager, Mr. Greason, offered me the overnight stocker position. I was desperate, and even though his warning was strange, I ignored it. Things get odd around here at night, he said, pushing his thick glasses up the bridge of his nose. Just stick to your tasks. And don't go wandering into the freezer aisle after 2 a.m. I thought he was joking. A lot of stores had weird superstitions, but I took the job anyway. My name's Kevin, and after last night I wish I hadn't. My shift started like any other, midnight to 8 a.m., unload the truck, stock the shelves, clean up the aisles. Simple. The store was quiet, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me. I liked the silence. But that night, it didn't stay silent for long. At 1:07 a.m., I heard the first sound. It came from aisle 9, the frozen goods section. It was a slow, rhythmic tapping, like someone gently knocking on the glass freezer doors. I assumed it was a loose shelf, or maybe a defrost cycle making strange noises. I didn't think much of it. But the tapping didn't stop. It grew louder, more deliberate, like fingernails raking against glass. I pushed my cart closer, cautiously stepping into aisle 9. The aisle was empty. The sound stopped the second I entered. I scanned the freezers. Their glass doors were fogged from the cold, but there were no signs of cracks, no loose panels, nothing. Shrugging it off, I returned to my cart and continued stocking cereal in aisle 4. But as soon as I turned away, the tapping returned. This time, it was faster, urgent. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my radio and called Mark, the only other overnight worker. Hey, Mark, you hear that tapping in Frozen? His radio crackled. No, man, I'm in the back room. Probably the compressor's acting up again. Yeah, probably. I forced a laugh. I'll check it later. I didn't plan to. By 2 a.m., the air in the store felt heavier. I found myself checking the clock constantly, counting down the minutes until my shift would end. That's when the lights in the produce section flickered. A low hum filled the air, growing louder, almost vibrating in my bones. I turned toward the hum and saw something that made me freeze. There was someone standing at the far end of the produce aisle, a tall figure in a pale green jacket. His back was to me, perfectly still, staring down at the display of apples. I couldn't make out his face, but something about him felt off. He didn't move like a normal person. His posture was too rigid, his head tilted just slightly to the side, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. "Sir?" I called out, my voice cracking. The figure didn't move. I approached slowly, heart thudding in my chest. "Sir, the store's closed. You can't be here." I took another step, The figure snapped its head toward me. There was no face, just smooth, pale skin stretched tight where features should be. No eyes, no mouth, no nose, just skin. I stumbled backward, knocking over a basket of oranges. The figure remained still, head turned unnaturally toward me. Then, with a sudden jolt, it sprinted into aisle 9 and vanished from sight. I grabbed my radio. "Mark, there's someone in the store. I think he's dangerous." Mark didn't answer. I radioed again. "Mark, are you there?" Silence. I sprinted to the back room, my shoes squeaking on the polished floor. The storage door was ajar, the light flickering inside. I pushed it open and called out, "Mark." No response. His cart was still there, partially stocked with cleaning supplies, but Mark was gone. I checked the receiving door, still locked. No sign of forced entry. Panic set in. That's when I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythmic knocking echoed from the freezer aisle. I should have left. I should have run straight out the front doors, but I couldn't leave Mark behind. I followed the sound back into the store. As I reached aisle 9, the air temperature dropped. My breath fogged in front of me. The tapping continued, now faster, as if whatever was making the sound was growing impatient. I rounded the corner and stopped. Every freezer door was wide open. Packages of frozen meals and vegetables were strewn across the floor, as if something had torn through the shelves in a hurry. The tapping had stopped, replaced by a faint, soft scraping coming from the end of the aisle. I inched closer, gripping the handle of my box cutter in my pocket. The scraping sound grew louder. It was coming from inside one of the walk-in freezers. The door was slightly ajar. Against every ounce of self-preservation, I pushed the door open. The freezer was empty except for the figure. It stood at the back, motionless, its faceless head tilted towards me again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Mark was there, standing beside it, his body stiff, his face expressionless, his eyes vacant. "Mark?" I whispered. He didn't respond. The figure raised one pale hand and pointed directly at me. I backed away, slamming the freezer door shut, locking the latch. I turned to run, but Mark's voice crackled over my radio. "You shouldn't have locked him in." I whipped around, expecting Mark to be behind me, but I was alone. I bolted toward the front entrance. The automatic doors didn't open. I slammed my shoulder against them, but they wouldn't budge. Over the store speakers, a voice echoed, distorted and mechanical. "You can't leave yet. Your shift isn't over." I spun around, searching for the source, but the speakers just hissed with static. "Mark?" I yelled into the radio. "Where are you? What's happening?" His voice returned, soft, almost mocking. "You should check aisle 3. I had no choice. When I reached aisle 3, I stopped cold. There were photographs pinned to the shelves, dozens of them. Photos of me, all taken inside the store. At different times throughout the night, me stocking shelves, me sweeping the floor, me staring at the clock. Photos I never took. Photos no one else could have taken. In the center of the aisle was a fresh, unopened roll of film. The store's PA system crackled again. "Keep working, the store's not closed." I ran to the office, desperate to find the security system. Maybe I could override the doors or call the police. The monitors were on, but the footage was wrong. Each screen showed a different aisle, but they were empty, no shelves, no products. just endless rows of bare walls stretching into black corridors. Except for one screen, aisle 9. The freezer doors were open again, and Mark was standing there, staring directly into the security camera. His mouth moved. The speakers played his voice. "You need to finish your shift." I yanked the power cord from the wall, cutting the feed. Suddenly the store lights dimmed. The buzzing fluorescent bulbs flickered, plunging me into near darkness. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came from behind me. I turned slowly. The figure was there, halfway down the hallway, approaching with deliberate, mechanical steps. I sprinted out of the office, ducking into aisle 4. My breathing was ragged, panic surging through me. I needed to hide, but every aisle felt exposed. I crouched behind a cereal display, trying to steady my breath. The tapping grew louder. I heard footsteps pause at the end of the aisle, then Mark's voice, right behind me. "You don't get to leave. You're part of the store now." I spun around. No one was there. The intercom buzzed again. "Return to your station." The clock read 3:45 a.m., 15 more minutes. I sprinted to the front, slamming my fists against the door. "Let me out," I screamed. "Please just let me out." The faceless figure emerged from aisle 2, slowly walking toward me, Mark trailing behind him. My radio crackled one last time. "You can't leave a shift unfinished." The clock struck 4 a.m. The front doors slid open with a soft chime. Without looking back, I bolted through the doors and didn't stop running until I reached my car. I drove home in silence, my pulse thundering in my ears. I called the store the next morning to quit, but the call didn't connect. I drove back during the day, only to find the building completely abandoned. Dusty, boarded up windows. The interior is stripped bare, as if the store had been closed for years. But as I walked back to my car, I noticed something wedged under my windshield wiper. It was a Polaroid, a photo of me taken from behind the register, working the night shift. Scrawled on the back in smudged ink, "See you tonight." I stayed locked in my apartment the next day, unable to focus on anything else. I replayed the night over and over again in my head, every sound, every word, the tapping, the freezer doors, Mark's voice. But the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about was the Polaroid left on my windshield. How? How could anyone have taken that photo when I was alone in the store? When I was trapped? When I was being hunted? I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I spent the day scrolling through every online article, news clipping, forum post, anything I could find about Hollow Creek Grocery. That's when I found something. There was a thread buried on an old message board from 6 years ago. A user had posted about the cursed grocery store on Hollow Creek. Other people had commented, sharing strange experiences. Phantom sounds, mannequins that moved, disembodied footsteps. But one detail stood out. Every single person who worked the night shift mentioned a man named Mark. But in every story, Mark went missing. I scrolled further. Someone claimed that the store had been abandoned for years, condemned after a fire. But that couldn't be right. I was just there last night. The more I read, the more my stomach twisted. One post ended with a chilling sentence. "If you see Mark, it's already too late." By evening, despite my fear, I couldn't resist. I drove back to Hollow Creek Grocery. When I arrived, the building looked exactly as I had seen earlier. Windows boarded up, parking lot cracked and overgrown. No signs of life. But the automatic doors slid open the moment I approached, and the lights were on. Against every instinct screaming at me to turn back, I stepped inside. The store was exactly as I had left it. Fully stocked, clean floors, working lights. It was like it had never closed. I checked the clock. Midnight. My shift had started. "You're late," Mark's voice buzzed over the intercom. I spun around, but no one was there. The radio in my pocket crackled to life. "Your cart in aisle 7. Get to work." I should have run. I should have gotten in my car and driven as far as I could, but I didn't. Something pulled me deeper into that place, as if the store itself wouldn't let me go. I found the cart in aisle 7, fully loaded with boxes to stock. My hands shook as I tore them open, stacking cans on the shelves just to keep moving. The speakers whispered again, "Good boy," just like before. I slammed the can on the shelf. "Where's Mark?" I shouted. Silence. I pushed the cart forward. The lights in aisle 7 dimmed, and a low tapping sound echoed again, this time faster, circling me. The freezer doors slammed open and shut in rapid succession, the sound bouncing through the aisles. I sprinted to the front. The doors wouldn't open. "Finish your shift," the voice commanded, colder now. "Don't fall behind." I turned and saw the figure again, standing just a few aisles away, faceless, motionless, waiting. I raced to the back room, but the layout had changed. The aisles twisted unnaturally, looping back into themselves. No matter where I turned, I found myself back in aisle 3. The photographs were back, more this time. Photos of me panicking, running, hiding. Pinned beneath them was a torn, blood-stained apron. Mark's name tag was still attached. My heart hammered in my chest. A slow, deliberate tap sounded behind me. I spun around. Mark was there, but his body wasn't right. His head hung at an impossible angle, his arms dangling limply. His eyes were completely black. "You're falling behind," he croaked, his mouth moving like it was trying to remember how to speak. He stepped toward me. I backed away. "Finish your shift," he hissed. I turned and ran. I sprinted through the aisles, the store warping around me, the lights flickering in chaotic patterns. The faceless figure moved toward me from the frozen section. Mark's limping body followed close behind. I ducked into the cleaning supply aisle and grabbed the longest mop handle I could find. I swung wildly when Mark reached me, knocking him to the floor. I bolted toward the office again, desperate to find a way out. When I reached the office, the monitors flickered with static, then showed live feeds of me, running, hiding, panicking. The radio hissed, "There's no back door this time." I yanked the phone from the receiver, dead. I flipped the breaker panel, plunging the store into darkness. Silence. I crept out of the office, using the dim glow of my phone to guide me. Tap, tap, tap. The sound was closer now. I turned into the produce section and found a hatch in the floor, half hidden behind the crates, a maintenance crawl space. I pried it open and slid inside, crawling through the suffocating tunnel, the tapping growing louder above me, echoing through the floorboards. I reached the end of the tunnel and emerged behind the dairy section. The lights flickered back on. Standing in front of me was a faceless figure, but now there were more. Dozens of them, emerging from the aisles, from the stockroom, from the crawl spaces. They all wore old Hollow Creek uniforms, their bodies stiff, their heads tilted at impossible angles, their blank faces turned toward me in unison. Mark's voice whispered from every speaker, every radio, every wall. "You're part of the store now." They surged toward me. I sprinted toward the front doors, but the aisles stretched endlessly in front of me. Every turn brought me back to the same aisle. I was trapped. I screamed, swinging the mop handle wildly as I pushed through the crowd of faceless workers. The clock read 3:58 a.m. 2 more minutes, the speakers hissed. I charged to the front, desperate to beat the clock. One of the faceless figures lunged at me, grabbing my ankle. I kicked free, crawling the last few feet toward the doors. The doors remained sealed. "Finish your shift," they whispered. 3:59 a.m. I slammed my fists against the door, tears blurring my vision. "Let me out!" I screamed. The faceless workers stopped in unison, their heads snapping toward the clock. 4 a.m. The doors slid open. Without hesitation, I crawled through and collapsed onto the pavement outside. The whispers stopped. The tapping stopped. The faceless workers vanished. I stumbled to my car, my body trembling. I drove home in silence, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I reached my apartment, I ripped off the store uniform and threw it in the trash. But the next morning, another Polaroid waited under my windshield. A new one. It showed me working in the store, stocking shelves. On the back, a new message. Late again.